Hello, we are back and getting back into the swing of things, getting my legs underneath me again, and a lot has happened, and I want to talk about a rather sensitive issue, and that's the recent Jon Jones going-ons. And yeah, I know what everyone's saying. It feels like every few months there is some kind of breaking news involving Jon Jones, and it's some kind of public incident that doesn't make him look particularly good. And I know now the latest one was that there was a car. He drove through a red light and hit a car. It was a hit and run. He injured a woman as a result of this, and she was pregnant. She ended up with a fractured arm, a fractured wrist, or something of some sort. Worries me though that they said there was no damage to the fetus, because how can you tell that early? They need to kind of watchfully monitor the fetus, the baby, inside this, because you never know what you could find eventually in a few days. But thank God there was nothing instant that happened. There was no miscarriage, or there was, the woman behind the wheel died. Thank God nothing like that happened. And thoughts and prayers go out to that young lady and her baby, and I wish them the best, the very, very best of life. Let's not forget that they are victims in this, and lives could have been cost as a result. Now, talking about the whole Jon Jones thing, apparently after that he got out of the car, and then he came back to the scene of the crime, to the car, took out some things, some money or whatever it was, and then ran away again and jumped over a fence apparently. So yeah, I know I'm in England, but I am actually kind of watching my fences, because I know those things aren't, no, I'm joking, foxes jumping over my fence. But that's what's out there. And then apparently, according to further reports, there was some weed and a pipe found in the car, which doesn't surprise me, because weed is such a commonly used drug. So I'm not condoning it or condemning it. It's so commonly used nowadays that it's just kind of goes over my head. There's certain cases where I wouldn't advise using it, but that's another tale for another time. The thing is, it's again another Jon Jones incident, another Jon Jones breaking news situation. And to be honest with you, especially in the last 2 months, when you've had the cocaine scandal, the cocaine situation where they found cocaine metabolites in his system and everything that came out of that, and then not long after that, now you have another incident before one of his big fights on May 23rd against Anthony Johnson. And that leaves a lot of questions. Let's just talk about, I'm going to break it down into this. Let's talk about the incidents. Let's talk about the fan reaction. Fan reaction on Twitter has been very interesting. A lot of people want the hammer thrown down at Jon Jones. A lot of people are pissed, and I would be too. I think this kind of adds fuel to the fire to the fans that have never really liked Jon, because obviously since he debuted in the UFC, fans have just had this issue with how he carries himself, how he tries to carry himself in their minds as a holier-than-thou kind of person, yet we all see through it. It's rather transparent. This isn't completely sincere, and I don't think he's entirely sure of some of the things he says, and I think that is part of the problem. But a lot of fans call him fake, transparent, insincere, disingenuous. There's a lot of words people have used to describe Jon Jones. And going into 2011, when he won the belt though off of Shogun, that night in my mind he was the most popular fighter in all of UFC. You never would have imagined this spiral, this sudden spiral, not inside the cage, outside of the cage, when it comes to regards of Jon Jones the person. Because you have the whole Rashad Evans thing, and I know a lot of fans, and let's touch on that for a little bit, people thought that Rashad was going to be the one that was hated, but instead the story came out and it was the fans that turned on Jon, not Rashad. Then you had the whole UFC 151 cancellation. Jon was vilified after that one. You had the DUI incident of that year. That was coming off the heels of him saying something along the lines of, the UFC sponsor me because they know I'm the guy, they know they would not have to worry about any PR disasters, and it was kind of said at the expense of the other fighters. And then not long after that, he gets a DUI with 2 unidentified women in the back of his car. You have all of that. You just have a lot of things with Jon, and a lot of people just don't like the way he carries himself. They think that he tries to come off humble when we know he's really quite arrogant. Then you go into the whole Daniel Cormier situation, and a lot of people sided with Cormier before that fight was even signed. And you have the whole brawl at the press conference and them two getting into it, and a lot of people did not like Jon, the way that Jon carried himself, having his daughter go on Instagram and do a video, which I thought was pretty questionable personally myself. I don't think he needs to be doing that. Don't get your kids involved. It's the fight business. I understand you got to promote, but don't get your kids involved. Putting his daughter out there saying, my dad's going to beat you up. That's just not good, especially with what people can write in the comment section. Believe me, take it from me. People can be pretty vicious in the comment section. And then doing videos, calling Cormier fat and chubby and you suck, then deleting them, writing pretty questionable things on Twitter from time to time. What was the other one? He wrote some gay slurs on Instagram and then claimed that his account was hacked, which is my favourite excuse whenever someone does something stupid on Twitter. And then there was a leaked video or something like that of him about a while ago too. So he does some things that are very, very questionable, but it really kicked off with this whole cocaine scandal the beginning of the year, because when that came out, that blew everyone's mind, much like cocaine does. It literally blew everyone's mind when it came out, and a lot of people were furious. A lot of people thought he was a disgrace. A lot of people felt that he should be stripped of the belt. Lots of people had strong opinions. My opinion, and I actually wasn't able to do a video at the time about the whole thing, was that, and it kind of ties in with what's just happened now with this whole hit and run stuff, and this is how I feel about him. My opinion is this: Jon Jones works in a profession where the entire world is watching everything that you're doing. Everything you're doing, everything you're saying, everything you're wearing is under a microscope. So if you do something wrong, it's going to be whoosh. It's not the same as if my next door neighbour were to do something like that. It's nowhere near as bad. See, with the profession he has, you kind of waiver the rights to your personal life. And Jon has done something in his personal life that's been made very public. So that kind of brings it all out there. What do I think that... I feel like what Jon does in his personal life is what he does in his personal life. However, he can't keep his personal life and his professional life separate. And I know it's quite hard to do that and to be able to kind of create some kind of separation there because of the job he does, in a job where you're beating guys up and you basically look like a superhuman, godlike figure. So when you do something wrong in that kind of profession, it's even bigger than what it would be under circumstances like you and me and next door neighbours and people down the road. So when you do something wrong, that superhuman image is definitely going to be debated and questioned, and you'll have the hammer thrown down at you. It's almost going to be like the whole Man of Steel Batman vs Superman trailer, if you've seen like the way that they're responding to Superman. It's kind of like that. That's how I view the whole celebrity lifestyle. People will put you up as gods and then they will slam you right back down. The thing is though, Jon has given so many people ammunition over the years that you can't say it's completely one-sided. When he does the cocaine and how that was handled, I think how that was handled was more questionable than him doing cocaine, because he was in a rehab centre. He was talking about, I think he was quoted as saying he had a problem, he's going to handle this, and then he checks out of rehab one day after that. That's very questionable to me, because what's going on there? Do we know if he's addicted to cocaine? That's another debate. What we do know is that Jon is a very immature young man who has a fiancée and 3 kids. And you would think, for the sake of his 3 children, he would put that in mind before he does some of the stupid things that he does. But then again, can I blame him when he's had money thrown at him, sponsors from Nike, sponsors from Reebok, sponsors from K-Swiss, sponsors from Gatorade, all of these people? It's going to have an effect on you, and if you're not mature enough to handle it and to grasp it, then things are going to happen. It's a lot like human relationships and love. A lot of people aren't very mature to handle love and relationships, even though they give off the appearance of a physical adult. The way they act and the way they handle things creates so many problems, and they kind of need to take a step back, mature, grow, learn, develop, make better choices for their life and that affect the people around them, and then move on from there. And this looks like another one of those times where Jon, the maturity level comes into question here. The maturity level inside the octagon doesn't come into question. Guy's got a high fighter IQ, very talented, very creative, an awesome fighter. Outside of that, the whole maturity up here as a man outside, going into the public, doing things, it's coming into question again, because having an incident like this and doing what he did doesn't help him and doesn't help his image, and I think this gives fans even more ammunition. Now, what do I think the UFC should do? Because there's a lot of debate about what should happen. I know a lot of people feel that Jon should be fired, which I don't think they'll do. I don't see them firing Jon, because the last thing they want is him going to Bellator. He's Jon Jones, he's a big star, he's developed into a pay-per-view draw, especially after the Cormier fight. I don't see them releasing him like that. What I do think could happen is he could be suspended. I personally don't think he should be fighting on the 23rd of May against Anthony Rumble Johnson. I think he should be taken out of that fight, because he's got issues in his life much bigger than professional fighting right now, and I think he needs to have a step back. I thought he needed a step back after the whole cocaine thing. Personally, he's got those issues that are much bigger than fighting, and he needs to deal with those right now. He needs to deal with those right now, and get some media training too. That's another thing. A lot of people feel he should be stripped of the UFC title. That's a very, very interesting point. A lot of people have talked to me and said Jon should be stripped of the UFC championship, because UFC fighters have this moral clause in their contracts, and we all have clauses in our contracts for the people that we work for, where if we do something that makes the company look very, very bad, we are A, suspended, or B, fired. So I think one or the other is going to happen, and I think he'll be suspended, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's stripped of the UFC title. I mean, obviously it would make an interesting story later on, from a promoter standpoint. Can he reclaim the belt he never lost? But realistically, in this whole comeback, and I know that UFC would go with that spin, but I think right now he needs to not fight for May 23rd. I think, and to be honest, he should be focusing on his fight, not doing stuff like that and getting involved in stuff like that. He should be focused on his fight. But my thoughts are, I think that maybe they should pull Jon out of the fight. Pull Jon out of the fight. He needs to deal with his life right now. He really needs to think about growing as a man. Obviously, yes, he's got kids and he's got a fiance, but as I said before, a lot of people can have a house, a lot of people can have kids, a lot of people can have a fiance or a fiance, a lot of people can have a full-time job. They can have all of those things. They can give off the appearance of a grown adult, but when you see how they act and you see the way they treat people, it tells you something completely different. It tells another story. And in the case of Jon Jones, it's telling me, a person that's watching this, that Jon is not completely matured just yet, and he needs to go and make some choices, especially taking into account that he's got 3 kids. I think maybe he takes a break, you make an interim title, possibly do Rumble Johnson and Daniel Cormier for that belt, and right now Jon needs to focus on Jon and his family and putting these things right, because you don't want to see another great athlete basically self-destruct. You don't want to see another athlete, a promising athlete like that, completely just fuck it all up. You don't want to see him go like that. This almost happened to Patrick Kluivert back in the day. If anyone watches football, I remember when Patrick Kluivert used to play for Ajax and he was a teenager and had a real bad reputation for a very, very, very long time, and I think it hurt his career for a long time, but eventually he kind of got out of it, and I wouldn't like to see him go like that. A lot of people are comparing this to like Mike Tyson, and I can see some of those comparisons too. I would like to see, like Mike Tyson and Patrick Kluivert, for Jon to put it all together and just grow as a person and stop doing juvenile, stupid things. Anyways, that's me. That's my piece said. I'm going to stop right now. If you haven't met me before, I do MMA videos. I do pro wrestling videos. Sometimes I talk about comics. I know some people hate that. Write some comments. Let me know what you think. What do you think about Jon Jones the person? What do you think about Jon Jones the fighter? Do you feel he should be pulled from the fight? Do you feel he should be stripped of the title? Do you think he should be fired? What do you think the court's going to do to him? I also know that he's going to be, I think the commissioner are not happy with him about what he said about the sponsorship, because they feel like he lied about the sponsorship or something like that. What do you think of all of this? How do you think it should be dealt with? I need to know, especially if your opinion differs from me, or if it's the same as mine, doesn't matter. Write it down, comment, like, subscribe, share, and I am out of here. Take care.